Hello, welcome back to our animation course. In our last video, we went over the landing sequence of the ship. So as it comes flying in, these doors will open, the arms come out to catch the ship, and the ship flies in, the wings fold up, the ship lands perfectly within the arms, and after a moment, the cockpit opens up. So we have our ending essentially done. So what about the beginning? Let's rotate our view around so we can see the curve of the motion path. So the ship starts way up here, and we don't necessarily have to, in our final animation, show the entire path of the ship flying. We can do some cut away to different things. It just depends on how you want to produce and direct your little video that we're making. But the plan is that along the way, the ship will fly in, shoot at some asteroids or some targets or something, and then as it finishes that up, it'll then bank around to come in for the landing that we've prepared for it. So let's look at our spaceship flying in. Now for the targets themselves, I think I'm going to leave that up to you as to what you'd like them to be. You can make asteroids, you can make other spaceships, like you could copy our spaceship that we have and make them fly around and have the ship shoot at them. That could be cool. So for demonstration purposes, I think I'm just going to put some kind of placeholder objects like spheres or something, have the ship shoot at them, have them kind of vanish, and then the ship will fly through to the final scene. And at the end of everything, maybe I'll go back and add in something for my final rendered piece. So first, let's, in our case, create some spheres. I'm just going to go for some NURB spheres. Again, since it's not going to be, it's just going to be a placeholder. I'm not going to worry too much about what they look like. I'm just going to move them over here, like so. So we can either place them around or have them move into the scene. I'll leave that up to you as well. I'm just going to duplicate these spheres around. Not all of them are going to be targets that the ship will shoot at, but we'll have at least one. Hold down the C key for curve snap, minimize, click, and drag on the curve. We'll have one right here in the ship's path, maybe closer to over here. Let's put it with the others right here. So as the ship comes in, it'll be firing its guns, and then we'll do whatever we're going to do with the sphere, have it blink out of existence or fly away or something, and then the ship will come flying through where the sphere was and do its landing. So up here at the beginning, it's just kind of flying into our scene. So around here, so we should probably have it start firing its guns somewhere along in here. So let's zoom in on our ship. We'll select it, press F to kind of frame it in our view. We have our ship controls right here. Right gun, left gun, and top gun are our controls for the guns. So let's see what we can do with this. We can start at frame, let's say frame 10. And if you have too many frames here, we have 250 frames visible in our time slider because we're including all the landing that we've done. If we want to keep the frames close to where we're working, like between 0 and 50 or so, you type in this first input box, 50. It'll only show those 50 frames that we're dealing with. And you'll see our range slider here. It shows the range that we're displaying of the time slider, which is from frame 1 to frame 50. So from frame, let's say 10 to, as it gets closer to the ship, it's blasting away at it. Frame 25-ish, it should have done all the shooting it's going to do to get rid of that sphere, or whatever it's going to be, our enemy ship. So let's say around frame 10, well actually let's start earlier than that, frame 7, 8, somewhere around here. We can start the guns shooting. So I'm going to select right, left, and top guns at their default 0 values, right click and say key selected. And then the guns don't take too long to shoot. So between frame 8 and 25 or so is a little bit less than a second, so it's pretty quick. So we actually might want to think about extending the scene a little bit. Maybe make these spheres move back some. So maybe the shooting is actually happening over a longer period of time, just a bit, that make it have a bit more of a time to register with the viewers what's happening. Okay, so now the spheres are a little further back, so the ship has more time between here and here to start actually do the shooting that we're going to do. So frame 8, we have our first frame, and we can actually look through our chase camera, perspective camera. So now I'm looking through the camera that's pointing at the ship. That makes it a bit easier to follow it. So at frame 8, the guns are all starting to shoot. So how long should a gun take to shoot? Not long, right? Half a second for the full shot to take place. Let's say 8 plus 15 frames or so. So we can go to frame 24 or so and select our right, left, and top gun and increase them all up to 10. Right click and key selected. So between 8 and 24, they're doing their firing. So that's actually pretty slow. So just a matter of kind of gauging how quickly these guns should fire. We can use our trick that we learned from our first video. I can select, hold shift, click and drag to select this range of keys and move this keyframe up. Let's say to 18, so 10 frames for the fire. Let's see how that looks. That's pretty quick. So then we can repeat that motion from frame 18 to 28. We can change our right, left, and top gun values back to 0 and key them. So let's play that. So it goes through the motion back and forth to create that firing effect. So yeah, we can just keep repeating that from 28 to 38. Have the guns go back to 10. Key selected. So again, they're firing. And now it's passing through that sphere that it's going to blow up. So it fires a few times. Each gun fires 3 times. Let's play it. Like so. Let's go into the graph editor. We'll go to Window, Animation Editors, Graph Editor. We still have our spaceship controls selected. Let's choose our right, left, and gun channels over here and press the F key to frame them. So you see here our curve is very curvy, which makes sense. But for a gun shooting, it should be a very sharp staccato kind of movement. If we select our curve and choose this linear tangents button, which is this kind of V shape, if we click that, you'll see that the curve has now become very straight and pointy at the angles as it makes the animation happen. So if we watch the animation as it plays now, and I'll zoom in a little bit, hit play, you can see the guns as they move. We might even want the guns to be even faster than this. Guns are a pretty quick thing to do when it's firing its animation. It should be pretty fast. But let's keep this for now, and if you feel like it needs to be faster, I'll let you adjust that yourself. So what I'm going to do now is, instead of having all 3 guns firing at the same exact time, I'm going to offset them a little bit, like we did with the landing pad controls. So we'll go back to the graph editor. So then I'm going to select the right gun, so only the right gun is visible. Grab all its keys and kind of press W key for move tool, hold shift, middle click, and drag to kind of shift them over 2 frames. Shift all the frames over 2 frames. I'm going to grab the top gun and I'll just shift them over maybe 1 frame. So when I have all 3 selected, they're like this. So now when I play through this animation, let's see what it looks like. You can even offset them even more. So I'm going to grab the right gun, I'll grab it, and let's offset it like maybe 3 or 4 frames. Again, doing the same with the other guns. So we have this kind of pattern. And because it is a bit of a pattern, we might need to break it up a little bit, so it's not quite so even. So let's just see what that looks like. And we may even need to add some points to our animation. So because the left gun starts before the right gun, what we can do is have the right gun, which is this curve here, have another point of animation starting at the same time as the left gun. So let's select the right gun. Well, let's select the left gun and select the keyframe, and we see that it's now starting at frame 5. And the right gun doesn't start till frame 19. So from frame 19, 10 frames back would be at frame 9. So let's go to frame 9. Select our right gun. Let's go ahead and move it up to 10. And key that value. Key selected. So now as I scrub through here, you can see how the guns are not necessarily firing in synchronization, but they're both firing throughout this span of time. So they're both definitely going at it. Hit play. So all the guns are firing throughout that sequence. I'll go back to my camera view. So the guns fire through here, and they go through the spheres that they're blowing up, and they continue on their path. So let's look at the other element of the spaceship that moves, which is the flaps. Let me frame back onto the spaceship here. If you remember, we have the spaceship kind of slowing down as it reaches the landing platform. And if you know about real airplanes, you know they use flaps to kind of help slow them down as they come in for a landing. We're going to do the same thing. Same thing while it's turning. We can use the flaps to kind of simulate a turn in the atmosphere. And I know it's a spaceship, but come on, it's fun. So I'm going to select our spaceship control here. So around frame 60 or so, it's starting to do its bank. So we can play with the flaps. You know, it doesn't have to be too scientifically accurate. It just depends on how you feel about it. But we can have the, say, right flap kind of do something. Since it's kind of banking toward the right, maybe the right flap itself is the one that's doing that motion, or the left flap maybe is doing the opposite motion. Maybe we're doing something like this as it's coming in. And then as it comes in for its final descent, let's move our camera. So around over here, we can have both flaps kind of flare up in this upward motion as it's coming in for this final landing. So the exact specifics of what the flaps do, I'll leave that up to you for the most part. You know, but it's fun. You can do whatever you'd like. I'm going to have the flaps kind of do opposite direction coming in to the banking motion, and then as they come in for the final landing, have them both kind of flare up to try and create friction to slow the ship down. So around frame 60 is about where the ship starts entering the rotation of the motion path. I'm going to key left and right flap at their 0 values, key selected. So they start at 0 where they are now. So then now as it gets into the bank, right through here, this is where I'm going to have, and I can look through the chase cam again, so perspective, camera shape. So now I'm looking through the camera. So if around frame 70, I'll have the right flap go up to 10, key selected, and have the left flap go down to -10, and key selected. Because I can't see the left flap right now, I think I'm going to go back to my other camera, and I'll just frame my ship so I can see both. There we go. So they're going to do that as it goes around the bank, and as it straightens up to come in for the final approach, I'll key both flaps so that they're still at their current positions. Select the controls right there. Select both flaps, right click, key selected, and then as they finish the curve, finish the banking motion and coming on a straight way, I'll have the left flap go up to create that slow down resistance. Key selected. So it's coming in, flap moves up like that, starts slowing down. And right through here, as the ship is folding the wings up, we can have the flaps go back to their 0 position, seeing as their job is now done. Select both flap channels, key selected. So then at this point, the flaps come down to their 0 position, and the ship wings fold upwards, and it lands. Alright, so again, we have the ship flying in. It does all a bunch of shooting with its guns, firing at whatever targets you want it to fire at. Comes through there. The flaps or the wings start folding up and down to create that friction for the banking and slowing the ship's movement down. And as it gets to the landing platform, let's zoom in some, the wings fold upwards. The landing platform is doing its thing with the doors opening and the arms coming out. The ship's wings fold up and it comes in for a landing right there. And then after a moment, the cockpit opens up. So we've used all of our animation controls for our scene to get to the final result. So in our final video going over this course, I'm going to show you a little bit of things you can do for the finalization process, and I'll show you how to render a sequence, and then hopefully I'll have a finished example scene that you can take a look at, see how mine turned out. We'll add our additional cameras for camera cuts and things like that, so we'll have a nice little finished scene here. So I can't wait to show you, and I hope you enjoy the process so far, and I'll see you then.